Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for our next virtual event with Tori Eldridge and Rachel Howzell Hall to discuss Tori's new novel, The Ninja's Blade, sequel to The Ninja's Daughter. We're so excited and grateful that our bookstore can continue to bring authors and their works to our community during this uncertain time and even reach outside of LA. So thank you especially for joining us if you're not local. And we'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, which you can learn about on our website as well as our social media at Book Soup. Our next event is scheduled for next Thursday at 6 p.m. with Paria Hasori and Tembi Locke to discuss Paria's book, Found in Transition.
Oh.
So for regular updates on upcoming events, please feel free to subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on social media. This evening's virtual event will end with a Q&A, and if you'd like to, please submit a question and use the Ask a Question at the bottom of the screen. And if you like a question, you can click the like button and it'll bump them up, and we'll get to as many as possible. Also, please consider supporting our bookstore and our authors tonight by purchasing a copy of tonight's featured book, which you can do by clicking the green purchase button right below the viewer screen. It'll redirect you to our website where you can finish the checkout process, and it won't interrupt the presentation, so you can do it throughout. And they will be a special from Book Soup because they will be signed by Tori tomorrow. So right now is the best opportunity for that. And I will also share a link to The Ninja's Daughter as well as Rachel's book, which I will mention in a few minutes. So with that said, let me introduce our guest speakers for this evening. Tori Eldridge is the author of the Anthony, Lefty, and McCavity-nominated first Lily Wong thriller, The Ninja Daughter, which was named one of the best mystery books of the year by the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Her horror screenplay, The Gift, earned a semi-finalist place for the prestigious Academy Award Nicholl Fellowship. Tori is a Hawaiian Chinese-Norwegian modern-day ninja who was born and raised in Hawaii. She holds a 5th degree black belt in Toshindo Ninjutsu and has traveled the USA teaching seminars on the ninja arts, weapons, and women's self-protection. You can find her online at torieldridge.com and on Twitter at Tori Eldridge. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We've also celebrated Tori's launch last year, so it's exciting to have her back, even virtually, so thank you. And our other special guest this evening is Rachel Howzell Hall, who is a writer and assistant development director at City of Hope, a national leader in cancer research and treatment. Her first novel, A Quiet Storm, was a featured selection of Border's Original Voices program, as well as an alternate selection of the Black Expressions Book Club. And she lives in Los Angeles. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over to our guest tonight, and I'll be sharing links over to the side. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation.
Hi. Hey, Tori. Hi, everybody out there. We are so thrilled that you chose to spend, what day is this? It's Blur's Day. Blur's Day.
Thursday.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Tori and I, we're excited to finally get to do an event together. And I'm excited that I get to talk to Tori about this second novel, The Ninja's Blade. So, Tori, you ready?
Yeah, I am, gal.
First of all, I want to know, who got the cookies? Who got those special cookies? Who made cookies?
Where did they come from?
Yeah, where did they come from, and how did you determine who got to get them? Because I didn't get one.
Well, that can be solved because I still have them. Because if you know me, you know I can't eat the cookies.
That's right.
Yeah, I took one bite and went into sugar shock. So, I gave it to my son. That means I have 10 left. I'm thinking I was going to bring some over to Book Soup to whoever was working there because, they need something. But I don't know. I could hop by Cedar Sinai and drop off a couple cookies. We'll talk after.
Let's talk after. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get down to it.
Oh, by the way, in case anybody's wondering what those cookies are.
Yes, please show
that one right there.
They're like art. Beautiful. They're beautiful. So, for those who haven't read either The Ninja's Daughter or Ninja's Blade, can you give us the elevator speech about?
Oh, sure. Okay. So this is the Lily Wong series, and Lily Wong is a Chinese-Norwegian modern-day ninja in Los Angeles with joy, luck, love, family issues. And her younger sister was raped and murdered when Lily was in college, and Lily changed the course of her entire life and devoted herself to becoming a protector and defender of women. So Lily has a long martial arts background, starting with wushu and then with ninjutsu that she trained in on the sly. And when that happened with her sister, it was all, wholehearted into there. She dropped out of school. She moved above her Norwegian father's Chinese restaurant. Figured that one out. And she works. And she works for She works for a women's shelter run by Alicia Reiner and Stan Reiner, who are the most amazing couple. Alicia's this awesome Black woman from Compton, and Stan is this New York Jew former stockbroker, and they're just awesome. So that's kind of the setup of the people and how she gets, her gigs, so to speak.
So light reading, yes.
Yeah.
So this book, though, deals with something heavy. Yeah. And even in the way you write, you have humor, because Lily is the typical millennial who, first of all, doesn't drive a car. Well, that's what that's about, living in Los Angeles. But it's about trafficking, right? It's about young girls, children being trafficked to older men or whatever. Why the subject?
Yeah.
What was it about it that spoke to you that you're like, second book has to be about this?
Yeah. Well, if you've read The Ninja Daughter, then you would know that, and Rachel does, that it touches on sex trafficking. There's a little bit about it. And I wanted to do a deeper dive into this. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue in Los Angeles. I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to explore it. So The Ninja's Blade began with research, a couple months worth of it, and just really diving into it, and interviews and police reports and articles, and you know how it goes. Yeah. And finding this amazing organization called Children of the Night, run by Dr. Lois Lee, and the work they did, and all these interviews. And from this came these characters and this story. The characters came first. As I was watching all of these survivor tales, and not even just survivor tales, sometimes teenagers who are in this predicament. And by the way, these are prostituted children, right? These are prostituted teenagers. There is no such thing as child prostitution. Yeah. It does not exist, because if you are under the age of consent, you cannot choose to be a sex worker, right? So that's not a thing. And so, as I was going into these stories, I'm finding all these ways that these kids from all backgrounds, from all communities, are lured, tricked, coerced, forced, kidnapped into the life for all sorts of different reasons, in all different kinds of manipulation. And so from there came these characters that kind of exemplified these different things, and then the story came together.
What was the hardest part, other than the obvious, which is dealing with child rape? What was the hardest part of taking this big issue and boiling it down to 300 something odd pages, while also balancing the lighter Joy Luck Club, as you called it, side of the story? Because they're two kind of disparate lives, the young girls and Lily's life. What was the hard part of meshing those into a cohesive narrative?
Yeah, it's always a balancing act, because with both of the books, The Ninja Daughter and The Ninja's Blade, I'm balancing the drama, the mystery, the action, with a whole complicated family dynamic, and a little bit of a romance. There's a little bit of romance in this one, a little bit, and Lily's sardonic humor and things, and of course culture. And I'm blending all these things, but I also want it to be a fast-paced, action thing. So I lean on my screenwriting techniques for this. The way I outline things, the way I keep track of things is in, a 4-act structure with all these chapters and, these different beats and things. And I use Scrivener, and I can kind of, put some color in there so that I can see how long it's been since I left this from that, from this and that. And so you never feel like you're too long away from somebody, or that you've gotten too heavy.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I like writing about characters. I love complex characters who are neither, good or bad, because I think we're all, some are more good than others, but we're all a mix. We all have our motivations. And I think Lily is incredibly complex. I love her. And, her job, in some ways, she is a savior, but the way you write her isn't this kind of preachy, kind of white, because she is half, but this white savior who comes into these neighborhoods of color to save these girls. Now, tell me, how did you keep her from being preachy and, the white savior? Because that would be a difficult thing, and you didn't do that. So tell me about that, the creation of that part of her, the reluctant savior, even.
That's an interesting question. Empathy has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And Lily is at an age, and she's a kind of a person that is listening, and that is open, and that is empathetic and self-questioning. She's a lot like me in that way, actually. And quite frankly, I think the world can use a little more of that, listening and self-questioning. And because she's 25, she does it even more. So that's part of it. The other thing is, Lily is a person pulled already in 3 cultures, not just her Midwest Norwegian sensibility from her father and the immigrant Hong Kong Chinese thing from her mother, but also this Japanese culture from her sensei. So she is a woman who is, pulled in all these different directions, and they influence her in a city that is a macrocosm of her. We have one of the most diverse cities. And so it was very important to me that this didn't become a story of, this Asian hero, diving into the Asian community and, Chinese, all this sort of stuff. I didn't want it to be, a real small thing. So like in The Ninja Daughter, the people she helps, the 2 women and the child that she helps, they're all white. And the people who are the champions are a mix of all sorts of cultures, and the villains are a mix of all sorts of culture. And of course, there are the black and white villains that you're not really sure, are they villains? Are they heroes? And like you, I very much like gray. I like that question of, well, they're not all bad, or they're not all good.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, there's a line where her sensei says, they're talking about what is it? What keeps a warrior from becoming a killer? That line. Yeah. Explain that, and what is the difference between a warrior and a killer? Yeah. I mean, I know intellectually, but from the ninja arts, what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, in that scene, in this whole book, starts 4 weeks after the first book. And the first book ended with a lot of excitement and a lot of violence. And my feeling about violence is it has an impact, and it should have an impact, whether it's done to you, by you, around you, whatever. Unless you're some sociopath, it has an impact. And too often in fiction, movies, things like that, it doesn't. People are like, I just wiped out a whole whatever, but I'm cool. We're moving on.
Episode.
I don't like that. So this whole book starts off with Lily really in a crisis. Yeah. She is in a crisis from where she left off in the second book. So this whole thing of the violence that she committed, the violence that perhaps she could have stopped, weighs on her. And so when she goes to Sensei, this is where she's at, and these are the questions, and this is the crisis that she's in. And he is trying to set her straight, right? Yeah. And so one of the questions, as you said, is, he asked her, what is the difference? And, her answer, I can't remember actually her answer, but it was, basically semantics.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that is what she said. It's semantics. And he was like, no, it's not. It's a lot deeper than that, right. Because Lily, she's not out for vengeance. She's not out for punishment. you could say she's a vigilante, but I don't think of her that way because she's not trying to inflict justice or retribution.
Mm-hmm.
She's protecting, she's saving, she's rescuing.
Uh-huh.
And so the violence that she does is either in self-defense for herself or to protect others. And Sensi has to keep reminding her about that. I mean, some people might think, well, it's obvious, you should know, but not when it's happening, in your heart and you're questioning things, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's that about.
You just said the difference between what she's doing and a vigilante, because that was my question as I was reading it. And I think I even mentioned to you, it's like, does she ever, are there any repercussions from her inflicting violence? But it is coming from a different place than the typical. She's not Dirty Harry with ovaries, basically.
Right. Uh-huh. Exactly. You're right. She's not, you wiped out my family, I'm going to wipe out yours. Yeah. She's not out there, even with the bad guys, I mean, she's not out there trying to take care of justice.
Yeah.
She's trying to rescue people and make sure that law enforcement does their thing. She's not trying to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does she see how does she see law enforcement?
That's a complicated thing with her. Yeah, she's got a complicated relationship with that.
Yeah.
They didn't, I guess they did what they could with her sister, but they weren't very successful. And from Lily's point of view, that didn't turn out well. So you find out in the first book that, she was trolling. She was trolling to find that killer, and she did unsuspectingly. And, but even then it wasn't. What ended up happening was self-defense. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I found you, now you're gone,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's had those opportunities before in both books.
Yeah.
And she's not taken it.
Yeah. What do you wish for her?
Oh, Lily. I hope she finds balance. I hope she finds a way.
What is that? What does that mean?
Well, she's got this undeserved guilt going on, where she feels like she let her sister down. And so now she's trying to make it up by being a big sister to a city. And it really is. It is undeserved guilt, but I really understand why she can't wrap her brain around that yet. Yeah. And it's going to take a while. Uh-huh. And so I hope that she finds that. I hope she figures out how to be an adult with her parents. Yeah. I hope she figures out how to deal with that and that smooths over, and all that, unresolved filial obligation that's getting dumped on her by her mother gets evened out. And I hope she can have a life, and get back to, find some love and relationship and, get back into the world. I hope that for her.
Yeah. Let's move on to family. What struck me was, you have these poor kids, these poor girls who are being, raped and trapped and all this. And, you mentioned in the book that this happens for a variety of reasons. The home life in particular, where the parents don't love or don't see or, are just not there. And on the other side, you have Lily's mom, who's very, how would you just, it's weird because she's 50 and I'm 50. And so,
oh, you're so young.
Damn. I could be a 25-year-old. It was very weird reading this because it's like, I don't feel that grown. I don't understand. But anyway, back to her. Her mom is difficult. She wants certain things for herself. She's still trying to please her parents. And Lily, in some way, is trying to please her. And I was wondering as I read it, although Lily's not doing sex work, it's not that, but, some of those girls aren't seen. Does her mother see her? You know what I mean? What's the difference? I know what the difference is for Lily's life and in those girls' lives, but there's still that kind of dynamic of I'm not good enough, or this woman who I love doesn't see me for who I am. let's talk about moms.
Let's do that, right? Oh my gosh, because I had one, and yeah. God bless her, rest in peace. She was an interesting woman. She was a lot more Chinese than she ever realized. Let me just say that. And of course, I have 2 adult sons. And parallels, right, between characters and Lily. I like that sort of stuff, right? So you find it all threaded through my books, right? The parallel. I dig that. Yeah. So the whole unseen thing. I think Lily feels and understands that she's loved, right? She does. She believes that. She feels that. But this whole scene thing, that's something else. That's something else entirely. And so much of Lily she is consciously hiding ever since she went on this path that started, by the way, 7 years ago. So she conceals so much, so that doesn't help. And also the grief has magnified all of this because everybody in her family deals with it in a different way.
Right.
So that complicates it. So there's this, all these things that you feel, but you're trying to stuff, and it's coming out in different ways. But Lily being the eldest to a Hong Kong immigrant. I mean, my daughter-in-law is a Hong Konger, which I find just tremendously amusing because my son didn't fall in love with her until after I had already begun writing The Ninja Daughter. So it was totally serendipitous. I find that so interesting. But the Hong Kong culture and work and school and it's intense, right? And so that's Lily's mother's background. And she was supposed to come out to UCLA, get a business degree. Her father has a finance company. She was supposed to learn all of that, come back to Hong Kong, snag, attract a like-minded, guy, she had stuff she was supposed to do. Right. And she fell in love with this North Dakota, should have been a farmer guy. Right. And all that went to heck. And she's basically been paying for it ever since. So she's getting it from there. And you know how when you get something from one end, you tend to put it on another. Like if you're bullied at home, you tend to bully at school. You know what I mean? We need to come out on top somewhere. I think it's just kind of our nature in that way. And so her mother is going through that, and it's coming through there. And of course, Lily is just, and her sister skated by because, number 2 daughter, that's how that is. So, there's all of that. So that scene thing, it's a thing.
Do you think if her mom ever found out what she was doing, protecting women, putting her life on the line for other women, once she got over the shock, because I would kind of be like, what the hell are you doing, Maya? Why are you doing this for other? But then coming back to it and kind of being like, okay, that's noble work. You think her mom, if she found out what, after she hit the fan, come back and say, what you're doing is honorable?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to answer that because you're going to have to keep reading the books and find that out. But I love that you're wondering about it, and I hope other people do too.
Let's talk about dads, because a lot of times, sometimes, you always hear the term daddy issues, even though those girls with daddy issues, the dads are the ones who actually have the problem and not the girls. You know what I mean? How does he figure into her trajectory, Lily's trajectory?
Her father, she lucked out, man. Vern Knudsen is like salt of the earth, one of the most endearing humans. And you know what? He is modeled after my cousin's husband. Your cousin? Farmer, North Dakota farmer, salt of the earth. And his name is Vern. And that's who I think of. When I think of Baba, I think of Vern. I don't know if Vern would have ever given up his last name and, done all, but certainly I'll tell you, my dad wouldn't have. Lily's parents are nothing like mine, and her relationship with them is nothing like mine, which is really interesting. I pulled from my culture. I pulled from, some things come out, but they're very different people. You know,
Yeah.
my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she golfed and played tennis and you know, ran the Hawaiian Open. And, you know, my father was a high-powered, you know, he had his own business, his own financial, you know, insurance business. They were very different kinds of people than Lily's parents. And I'm a very different kind of person than Lily, especially when I was 25. And so it stands to reason that our relationships are not the same.
Yes.
You know, but, you know, it's fun to pull from that, you know, authentic cultural pool.
Yeah. Talking about authentic, you know, I love me some LA novels. And for those novels,
and you write damn good ones.
Yes,
Your Eloise, you know, Norton detective thrillers, one of my favorite series. I know a lot of y'all who are watching have read it, but if you have not read it, you need to get on that. I'm just saying.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, because I love this city so. And because you write LA, you know, especially those Angelino writers who are always making sure people get it right, because, you know, you just can't go on to Google and try and like write an LA story. The city is too damn big with too many. I mean, how many cultures?
My gosh.
10 million people here.
We have something like 400 languages spoken.
Yeah,
it's something crazy.
Like 400 like DMV books you can get to take the test. It's crazy, but the wonderful thing about your novels is, one, you capture all that crazy, wonderful thing that's Los Angeles, and you span it. I mean, you're going from Long Beach, which for those who don't know, Long Beach is where the Queen Mary is.
There you go.
About 30 miles south of UCLA. So you just don't go to Long Beach, but you have Long Beach, and you have Compton, and you have Venice, and you have Pasadena, and you have all these wonderful, different, diverse neighborhoods in this story. And it's not like you're making a point of, well, I'm going to put Eagle Rock in there. It's like, no, this is how we move through the city. That's why we're in cars, because we have lives in different parts of the city. When I first had my daughter, my mad plan was to have her have relationships in every part of Los Angeles. So we live in View Park. She went to school in Westchester, and now she's going to school in Palms, but she played soccer for Culver City, and she took swimming in Fairfax, because my thing is, you know, I want her to know someone in every part of the city.
That is a very cool thing. Man, you must have been driving all the time before you got the license.
All the time. But remember, you know, I think about writing as I'm driving. So it's not like altruistic. So let's talk about you and the different parts of the city. Why those parts that you chose? What's your favorite neighborhood? And how is Lily navigating all this city on a freaking bike? Without thinking, because every time she gets on a bike, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's sweating. Oh, she's sweating. Oh my gosh, she's gonna have to like wash her face.
She sweats a lot.
Yeah,
she totally sweats a lot. And you know what? Heads up, I sweat a lot. When I was on the Love Boat, oh my God, the makeup artists, I was a freaking nightmare. They were constantly, I was like, right now I'm under all these lights. It reminds me of being on the set of Love Boat. They would come at me, stop, and they'd charge at me, like patting down all the sweat. None of the other girls were sweating. Me, you know, and we're not talking about rosy glow. We're talking about dripping from my nose. Yeah, awful, terrible. Anyway, yes, Lily's like that. So I moved here a little over, 36 years ago, something like that. And
you're a naturalized citizen now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so first I stayed with my sister in Studio City in the Hills. And then I moved to the worst part of Hollywood back when there was all the really cool Kodak Theater. I lived right behind the Hollywood Hotel in basically a crack hotel. I kid you not. I was in a studio with, cockroaches and yeah. It was wonderful. And then, I moved into my now husband. We had a place in the Hollywood Hills, and then in Studio City, and then up at the top of Sunset Plaza, and then we moved to the boonies of Malibu. And so we were like all over the place. And then when my son was in high school, I ended up being the director for a social entrepreneurship program for high school students using music as a platform. This was a nonprofit in Dublin that was like an international thing. And my son was in it, and then they put me in charge of it in Los Angeles. So what happened was I started going to all sorts of, high schools. And I was going to like, backyard band parties in East LA and South Central. And so, because that's where my kids were, and that's, was part of this, band thing. And that's what we did. And so, I mean, I was there, I had kids up in Oxnard, I had them all in Brentwood, I had them everywhere. And so that, increased my reach even further, to the different places. And so that to me is LA. Yeah. It's all of these different communities, all these different people. And so that's where the action is. And that's what I wanted to show.
And with that comes the whole food thing. I told you back on Tuesday when we talked, you and Attica Lot, every time I read your stuff, there's these descriptions of food and I get hungry, and it makes me mad because it's like, it's, late. I can't drive to San Gabriel Mountains right now to get like great Chinese food. So let's talk about how food plays a part in not just Lily's life, but in our life out here. Why do you feature it so much?
Oh, I mean, I think the heart of culture is in our food. I mean, I grew up in Hawaii. You want to understand Hawaii, go eat. Eat. I know, right now we're all hungry again. And it's not just the Hawaiian food. You don't have to just eat poi and lalo and kalua pig. It's it's all the food there. And so here in Los Angeles, it's the same thing, right? I mean, we've got everything. We want to go out.
Taco trucks on every corner. It's like, I would like that. Can we have one right here? Yeah, we have.
Exactly. So, I mean, of course, Lily lives above her, father's Chinese restaurant. So, of course, food is going to play a huge thing, because with her father, food is more than food, right? He gave up his whole life, and he's always been about food, either growing it as a farmer, now preparing it. But he actually took the time to become an authentic Hong Kong chef. I mean, what is that about? That's love, that's sacrifice, that's honoring a culture, right? That's wanting to anchor his daughters in their mother's culture, right? That's huge, right? That's such a love thing. And so that's there, and the love of that food, but not just Chinese food, it's everything. So Lily, I think she has that same sensibility when she goes out in the world. She wants to have your food, she wants to have your culture, she wants to hear your music, she wants to step into your thing, and she has a genuine love and appreciation for that. And I think that's why she keeps building these really strong relationships.
And that's why she stays on that bike, because now she can eat whatever she wants, because I'm about to ride from Long Beach to freaking Malibu. So,
by the way, she almost never gets to finish anything she's eating. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Let her sit down and eat. When you go, eat. Hopefully with, a boy. Let's talk about love. Yeah. Does she think she's worthy of it? Because, she's going through the guilt thing. And how can I possibly fall in love and have this life when my poor sister is no longer here? Let's talk about her reluctance and her excitement and being scared to be excited.
Yeah. It's a huge thing. It's even more complicated than that, because love and romantic love is entwined with violence. And the reason of that is that her sister was raped and murdered on the very night that Lily lost her virginity. Yeah. With the one and only guy she's ever loved. That's gonna mess you up.
Yeah.
You know,
They're already going to be messed up, but then
that's totally going to mess you up. So these things are just kind of entwined with that. So, I mean, you know, she ended up breaking up with that guy. That was even before the ninja daughter. That's just a backstory thing. But, you know, it's hard for her, you know, so she doesn't date. She doesn't go there. You know, she's got all this excess energy. I'm like, my mom used to tell me when I was a teenager, if you have all that energy, why don't you clean your room?
I'll say, why don't you go and clean your room?
Your mother said that too?
Oh yeah. I think I've said that to Maya a few times. I think we just get those cue cards and you read them off in certain parts of the thing. Yeah.
It's hilarious. I thought it was just my mom.
No. You know you said it, but you didn't realize you said it because, you know, you just get that cue card and you just read it off.
Yeah.
If it would have bit you, that's another one, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you bring a jacket? Where is your jacket? You know, all the moms out there are like,
yeah. So it's, you know, so after so many years and coming to a certain age, you know, these feelings do start to come up, and these attractions to guys do start to come up, and especially when your mom keeps, you know, finagling getting you in the same room with this really handsome, nice, perfect Chinese, nice and insightful, right? I
mean, was a relief for me. I'm like, please don't let this guy be a jerk, and he wasn't. And I was like,
but he's very different from her. I mean, he's really, you know, she keeps calling him the perfect Chinese son, and she is most definitely the most imperfect Chinese daughter, or at least that's how she sees herself, and I'm sure that's how her mother sees her. And so, you know, it's like, do these two fit?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, I don't know if they'll fit, you know, but they're certainly circling around each other in interesting ways.
That's more than what she's done for a while. So great for her. So you've explored. Lily has been on the bike in all of Los Angeles.
Yeah. And by the way, she can drive.
She can drive, but she chooses
to own a car.
Like is once again, these kids I remember hearing my daughter and her friends, you know, at first saying not to get licensed. We'll just Uber everywhere. And it's like, who's paying for that? No, this is not, no, you need to learn how to drive. And so, but I was saying, so is she going to take her bike somewhere other than Los Angeles? What's next for Lily?
So, you know, I'm writing Lily 3. And she's in Hong Kong.
Wow. Is she feeling imperfect in Los Angeles?
It's interesting. She's in Hong Kong at the height of the September 2019 protests.
Awesome.
That's where it is, which is really interesting, knowing where the 2020 protests are going and where Hong Kong is going. It's very interesting. Putting her there, you know, when the reader also has a hint of, you know, where that's going and the attitudes and things. So there's a lot going on with her mom, with her, you know, with all sorts of things. You know how I am. I have all these different things going on, balancing them together. And it's more of the same, but it's in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Wow, she's gonna really butcher up her Cantonese, is it?
It's tricky. Cantonese is hard.
So you can start putting your questions in now as we're talking. So go ahead and do that. What was your favorite part of writing Ninja's Blade?
Ooh, the characters.
Which characters? I mean, they're so different. You have the black girls, you have the Guatemalan girl, you have the guys in the barber shop, the cop, grandparents, mom and dad, of course.
And those grandparents. Oh my gosh. Are they meddlesome or what? I love them.
So cute. I actually could see them. I saw them.
Oh, that mahjong table scene. Oh boy, what trouble they cause. But gotta love them. Gosh, there's so many characters. I just fell in love with all of them. You know, Dala. Oh my God, Dala. That's the black girl that you talked about.
Yeah.
She's huge. I'm not going to say too much about her because she's one of those characters that you have to discover her the way that Lily discovers her.
Yeah.
And she's something. She really is.
Right.
Was it hard to write?
Yeah. Did you go like to the mall and eavesdrop on because, especially, well, any girls have their rhythm in talking when they're talking to each other, but Black girls especially have this kind of cadence and poetics. And I think it's because a lot of Black girls have parents who come from the South. There's like this weird patois that we have, right? And so you captured that in Dallas in the way she talked. Mm-hmm. How did you, like I said, did you go and like go to the Slauson swap meet and just sit?
I gotta tell you, this book was so much research, much research, not just in the commercial sexual exploitation of youth. The research that I did like that to get the feeling of the culture and the community and the videos I watched, the music I listened to, the books I read. I mean, I just like saturated myself with everything that the art, the entertainment, the fiction, the music that they would want to listen to. That's what I wanted to listen to. That's what I wanted to read. That's what I fell in love with. And watching videos where, could even be like a books of grammar video where, it's a Black videographer and she's talking about her famous book. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. Hair videos. I cannot tell you how many Black hair videos I watch. Props to you, lady, because damn, that's a lot of work.
Well, when they're like, oh, we're all like rejoicing because the hair salons are now open. But when they're like, oh, you could get it done outside. I'm like, well, what Black girls can get their hair done outside? We don't do that. What? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a huge thing for me. And I spent, I cannot tell you how many hours of those videos I watched. And I'll tell you why it was important to me. As I was doing this deep dive into the commercial stuff trafficking and watching the way these traffickers, AKA some people call them pimps, I call them traffickers because we're talking about teenagers, the way they lure, the things they promise, right? Yeah. So much of it is like this hair and nails and things like that. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, on the surface, this sounds very superficial. And I can envision my readers who, for whom this is completely, they have no clue, looking at this going, why such a superficial thing would cause you to give it over? And I'm like, because it's deeper. It's more than that when you're talking about these girls. And so I'm like, if that is so important, then I need to know what all that is. And so that was a huge thing for me.
And I'm sorry. I mean, women, how much money do we spend on grown-ups? How much money do we spend on cosmetics and hair? So why wouldn't a 15-year-old be just as enamored by the possibility of being glammed up? I mean, for me, it made total sense. You fall for someone who gives you these things that you don't have, and someone who makes you feel good about yourself. I mean, again, adult women fall for others who chat them up and make them feel special and make them feel beautiful, and then all hell breaks loose. Right?
Yeah, and we end up marrying the wrong guy or dating, some scumbag or whatever. Not that we did. You and I, we chose well.
Oh, we lucked out.
Yeah, we did. But it happens, right? And magnify everything when you're talking about teenagers. So, back to, the culture and the cadence. And I was listening to so many interviews and just talking, I mean, part of the thing about watching those videos, no matter what the topic, was just to hear the voices and to hear the cadence. And there's just this glorious musicality about it. And, I was an actor and I was kind of a method actor. And when I write, I'm kind of the same way. And so when I write dialogue, and I'm doing a character, I'm feeling like I'm them. I'm pretending, and I say things out loud, and so I'm talking it like this, and I'm feeling it, and it's very emotional.
Yeah,
I like it.
So we have some questions.
Oh, fun.
The first, this is from Shakira. Hopefully I did not mess up your name. When you have an idea for a new book, what helps you flesh out planning the book?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah. So I kind of have a way, right? So I've written or begun, I'm in process of 5 different books. So I have 3 books that are completed. Well, let's see, Lily 1, Lily 2, another book that's being shopped, another book that's being shopped, that's 4. And the book that I'm writing now, that's 5, and a 6th book that is the sequel to a book that maybe will get sold. So I'm saying this just so you know that I've written enough things to realize I have a process. So thank you for the question. So here's my weird process. Most books, with the exception of The Ninja Daughter, begin with research, an awful lot of research. There's something that interests me, something that piques my interest, and I want to know more about it. And I start researching about it. And I keep researching until something clicks and characters emerge and some kind of plot idea emerges, and I get a premise, and I get maybe a log line. I get like a paragraph of an idea of what's going on. At that point, I go for a hike in the hills. And I start thinking about that, and it gets a little bigger. I tend to start from a seed, and it gets bigger and bigger. And then I might write down some of those things, and now I have paragraphs. And then maybe I go for another hike, and I start, I like to hike. I'm a very kinetic person. I've been an athlete all my life. I think better on my feet. So then it starts to get bigger and bigger. So at that point, I need to go to Scrivener. Before it was sticky notes on a poster board. Now it's Scrivener. And what I like about that is they have a binder. And I write in a 4-act structure the same way that I used to do when I did screenplays, with the 2nd and 3rd act being the big middle, that's twice the size. And so what that does for me is every act has a beginning, a middle, turning point, and a climax. And that helps to keep the pace and the action and, whatever it is, driving forward. And because I have kind of a sense of how many chapters I need in an act to hit a certain word count, then I'm populating those things with these chapters, and I'm fleshing out this plot idea and putting it where I think it belongs. And then I get a sense for, my 1st act is too big, or my 2nd act is too little, or I have no 5th act, 4th act, or, whatever. And I start realizing where more needs to go and where I can have more time and where I need to pull in more things. And all of that happens in this outlining process until I have 4 acts, chapters, and summaries for all of those chapters. And that is a very creative process for me. I really enjoy it. It's very exciting. And then I sit down to write, and it's all up for grabs. Once I start typing words and people start saying things and doing things go this way or that way, but it doesn't matter because I have something to fall back on. And that's very encouraging to me. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Okay, Gigi. Hi, Gigi.
Hey.
Was Lily the first character you wanted to write a book about, or are there other ideas you're exploring?
Oh, goodness. Lily was not the first novel that I wrote. The first novel that I wrote came out of a screenplay that I did a couple decades ago, the one that ended up getting that semi-finalist spot in the Academy Nicole Fellowship, and everybody who read it said, you should be writing novels. And I took them at their word, and I developed that into a novel. And the screenplay ended up being like the majority of it was the 4th act of what ended up being the novel. And it was, wow. I mean, it was, I'm still shopping it, and who knows, I might have some exciting news at some point. We'll see. So I don't want to tell you too much about it, but I will say it was in a complete other genre. It involves the black magic of Brazil. It crosses 3 continents, 40 years, and a past life in 1560 France. So, yeah.
So reading. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't even set out to be a crime fiction writer, let alone did I ever have an inkling that I was going to write about something so close to home. Lily came because, while I was writing, that novel, by the way, I picked it up 13 years later when I decided I really wanted to do this as a career. Between that time, I was raising kids and becoming obsessed in the martial arts. I'm doing other stuff, right? Yeah. So that novel became the project on which I learned my craft. Okay. So I was working on that, and then I got invited into, I had an opportunity to do a short story. Reader's Digest said, hey, we got a short story contest, and the deadline is tomorrow at midnight. And my good friend Jonathan Mayberry said, you should write short stories. It's good for you. You should just do it. And so I took his advice. I'm good at this, taking people's advice. And I had a premise because I had done a 200-word thriller challenge. Yeah. Can you write a thriller in 200 words? And I did. And it was the premise for the scene that became the pivotal scene for Lily Wong. But when I wrote that premise, I didn't know it was Lily Wong. So when I sat down to write this short story, stream of consciousness, out came Lily Wong and the scene that was, the bar scene.
Yeah.
In the Ninja Daughter, huge pivotal scene in that character. And so when I wrote this short story, I knew that she was telling this story to someone, and I knew exactly who that someone was. And that became the opening scene of the Ninja Daughter.
Awesome. Tracy. Hey,
Tracy. It's Clark.
Question. What's Lily's greatest flaw? Ooh, I love that question.
Yeah, her greatest flaw.
Because she's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, her Achilles heel is also her greatest attribute, which I think is her self-questioning. And it's constantly weighing her down, and that's something that I would say is her biggest Achilles heel. Flaw, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with the Achilles heel.
Okay. We'll come back to that because, yeah.
I'm going to have one of these things with Tracy, over at the bookseller, and I bet you anything she comes back and says, you didn't answer that question.
Erin. Hi, Erin. She has a question. Erin Alpha.
Tracy says I will. Crap.
If you were to write a book about any of the other characters in the Lily books, who would it be and why? Ooh.
Tran would have his own book.
Oh, really?
Tran from the Ninja Daughter.
I was going to
have his own book. Yeah. You need to know where he came from. Yeah. In fact, that's a hellish good idea. Maybe I'll do that one day. We'll see.
That's a good one. Okay. I was going to say the mom, but only because I'm a 50-year-old mom. But other than that. Jennifer Chow. Hi, Jennifer. She has a question. Exciting to hear about Lily in Hong Kong for book 3! Exclamation point. Do you have many more Lily stories floating around in your head?
Well, I have an idea of where I might take her for book 4, and I've kind of, set up that opportunity. I don't know if I'm going to follow through with that, so I'm not going to mention it. Aside from that, no, you know what? I know that if the series lasts long enough, she will end up in North Dakota. At some point, she's got to go to North Dakota.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's just got to happen.
There's a lot of dysfunction in land in North Dakota. There are plenty of places to hide bodies, I'm sure.
Oh my!
And plenty of very closed-mouthed bad things happening in North Dakota. I can see her trying to get information and no one's saying nothing. I mean, worse than out here where, people don't snitch, but it's a different thing in North Dakota. So,
yeah, that could be really interesting. Because one of the things I love about writing the Lily Wong books is that I was able to really dive more deeply into my culture and feel much more connected with my heritage than I ever before had, and mostly with the Chinese heritage. I mean, I was able to really celebrate the stories and stuff that came from my father and my cousins. But if I set a story in North Dakota, then I'm not just going to be diving into my, North Dakota Norwegian heritage, which is very close to Canada. So it's kind of different. Yeah. But as you say, there will be this whole investigation of, what is North Dakota? What's going on there? And I think that would really interest me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions before we wrap this up? As I'm waiting for any last questions, I want to say that I'm really enjoying Lily's journey, and there are parts where I feel awful for her. There are parts where I want to eat with her. There are parts where I want to be the 50-year-old mom and wag my finger at her. But in all of that, I love her. And I'm looking forward to her next adventure. I'm looking forward to learning more about Hong Kong and seeing that part of her. Oh, hey, Erin has another question. What are you guys reading right now?
Oh, gosh, I've been reading some great stuff. Let's see. Mexican Gothic. Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Heck of a good book. So good. Sean's book, S.A. Cosby's Black Top Wasteland. Oh man, that was hot. That was really something. Like that a whole lot. Let's see. I got to read your arc, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And now she's gone. And, and now she's gone. So y'all gonna want to check that out.
Yes,
that was really great. I'm reading Elsie Shaw's next book after the network. So that's The Silent Conspiracy. So that's like a plot-driven thriller thing, and that's fun. And Karen Dion's The Wicked Sister. I don't know if you guys ever read The Marsh King's Daughter, but that is one of my all-time favorite psychological thrillers. I love that book. Yeah, I mean, it's got a movie deal thing going on. It was published in I don't know, 23 languages, some crazy thing like that, right? So anyway, the next book is The Wicked Sister. Highly recommend that too.
Cool. I am doing a lot of reading for all the panels that I'll be doing as I promote And Now She's Gone. So I finished Lisa Cole's When No One Is Watching. I'm reading Tiffany Jackson's Grown and Tracy Dion's Legend Born. I'll be starting Neil Griffin's next book because we're doing an event together for that. John Fram, his debut. I'm going to be reading that. There's so many books, and it's crazy.
I want to read David Weben's book, Winter Counts.
I want to read that too, but I don't even know when I'm going to get to do my own kind of free-for-all freelance roaming book, reading books. But that's okay because I'm getting all these books in my library, and I have.
Let me ask you, because you've got a very demanding day job and you've got a family, you've got a teenager, pandemic life, that's a lot going on. You write all the time, you're launching a book, and you're doing all these things like you did for me, and it takes time and you have to read and everything. How do you squeeze your reading in? Do you just read or do you do audiobooks too?
I only do audiobooks when it's nonfiction and I need to walk. That's my carrot for exercising. I get up at 4:57 every morning because my ancient golden retriever needs to pee and I need to write. And so I get up and I write. A lot of times I will do reading. Like I read your story on the weekends after I wrote and during my lunch hour for my job.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I would read, and I read maybe for 15 minutes before I go to bed.
Yeah.
So I'm shoving it in there. It's hard, but I love it. And you do things, if I love to exercise, I'd be the weight I want to be, but I don't.
I read books while I do sit-ups. You know,
I don't care like that.
Sometimes I'll even read books while I'm in a plank. I just put it on the floor. I read books in the splits, you know, when I'm stretching. And then I have the audio books. That's for when I'm cooking and I'm cleaning and I'm hiking. And then sometimes I'll read while I'm brushing my teeth. You know, I mean, because
I definitely used to read more, but I wasn't writing as much as I'm writing now. And I don't know about you, but when I read really good crime, mystery, whatever, that's when I feel like a hack. You know, it's like, because there's some beautiful things. It's like, I can never write like that. And so I try not to read really good stuff traditionally, but now that's impossible because I'm only doing events and stuff with people who are great at it. So I'm feeling like a hack all the time. Thank you, Tori.
it's hilarious.
Oh, the life. But I wouldn't have it any other way. And I am honored that you asked me to join you in talking about your beautiful book, about your beautiful character. And I hope everybody click that green button beneath our pictures right there. It says purchase a signed copy of The Ninja Blade. I hope
I'm going in tomorrow and I'm going to stamp it with my personal Ninja Warrior chap.
Yep. See, how awesome is that? So thank you all for coming tonight. Tori, thank you for being great. And let's turn it over before we head out.
Yes, thank you, Tori. Thank you, Rachel. That was a super fun conversation and great for readers and writers. And I'm also very glad to know that I'm not the only one who cannot audiobook fiction. It has to be nonfiction. I'm like, I have to read an actual book, and now I'm going to start reading while I plank. So that's perfect.
Oh my gosh, I've started a whole thing, plank reading. That's awesome. All right, you guys,
movement on Instagram.
You have to tag me. I want to see your videos of you planking and reading. I'm serious. I'm totally serious. Tomorrow I am going to post a photo. Hashtag plank reading.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you all. Please get your signed copy so that Tori can come in and have copies to sign tomorrow. And everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you.